Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm recording from my car. What does that have to do with anything? Well, I'll explain in a second. Anyway, so YouTube is a funny thing where, and again, this is a good point in the video to say, um, I'm not asking for any of your money. I don't want your money. This isn't like a secret cult to try and get your money. I like talking to people, and I drive around and I get bored, and there's only so much radio you can listen to, and so I record videos in the car, and it just kind of works. Is it good? No, no, but I don't deserve the subscriber count I have. So there's a lot of people who are trying to get to this. They put real effort into their videos. They do editing and all the rest, and those people are trying. They're actually doing real channels. This is me talking to people, and for some reason, a bunch of people subscribed, and I can't answer to that. I can't explain it, but here we are. So anyway, I feel like people come to this channel like, what the ever loving hell? There's this guy this is the lowest quality. I get mail all the time like, hey, you should have really edited when you sneezed, and I'm like, I'm not looking back. This is just, if you went to a comic shop, you're talking to me. If you were at a Comic Con, if you were at dinner, wherever you happen to be, unless I was really tired, this is what you're getting. So that's what it is. It's very amateur. I wear that on my sleeve or something. I don't know. But an example of a channel that seems to actually put some effort into editing, and I mean no offense, but I also don't I don't listen to other channels. I'm working, I'm drawing, I'm consulting, I'm talking to people, I'm driving, I'm making videos. I rarely listen to anything else. So an exception to that is every now and then YouTube flags you with a little notification saying, "Hey, you're mentioned in a video over here. You're mentioned." And so I go and, I'm wondering, oh, who's mentioning me? And, at this time, I didn't recognize the who mentioned me. And so I clicked on it. I'm like, oh, I was mentioned in a video. And then the video was like, special thanks to Perch. And the video was from a guy named Anthony Garmonglia. And I'm sure I hope I'm not butchering the name. It's not intentional. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, I've mentioned in this video. I don't know why I'm thanked in it. I click on the video, and it's about Ironheart, and it's about why. I'll read you the name of the title. Actually, it's no, I won't. Yes, I will. It is called "No One Hates Ironheart for the Right Reasons," and I click on this video, like, there must be something. The guy has to be making fun of me. And then I realized the video is like 55 minutes long, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to listen to all this. But and thankfully, like, it finally gets to the point where he mentioned me. He basically referenced that I made a video around the Black Panther 2 timeframe, doing an analysis around when Marvel switched out a bunch of characters. And my basic premise in that video was that it's not that they switched one character so much, why there was so much rejection. It's that they kind of switched all of them simultaneously. Within a 12-month period, you had a ton of ton of comics where the main characters everyone had grown to know were suddenly replaced. And it so happened that they were replaced with, typically non-white men. And why that's important, again, it's less of a racing, but a lot of the legacy characters created in the 60s and the 70s, characters have been going on at Marvel for 50 odd years, were white and male. There was a general rule of thumb. I think you had 3 men to 1 woman, or 5 men to 1 woman, and then also like 5 white people, 1 black person. Like, for a long time, that was kind of the math that a lot of comics used. You were the origins of that racist. I don't know. I wasn't in the Marvel bullpen. I don't know if like there was Stanley was in there like, hey, true believers, let's make sure all the characters are white. Like, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it was Kirby. Kirby's like, I'm going downstairs to punch some Nazis and draw white people. I don't know what was going on there, but that was the way it was. And so, fast forward 50 years, you've got all these characters that have been in existence for a long time that everyone knows and recognizes. And Marvel's looking around at their roster characters and be like, most of these are white. We really ought to have some, like, we can't just always rely on the Falcon here, guys. We got the Falcon, we got Sue Storm, and we're trying to do stuff with Storm, but nobody seems to have any good ideas for our stories that will sell. But we really ought to do something. So, like, I know what we'll do. People are probably tired of white Captain America, white Iron Man, and white Thor. Let's switch them all up. And that idea on its surface may not have been terrible. And in some cases, as I showed in a sales video with Thor, it actually worked out. They did replace Thor with Jane Foster, and the sales went up. I mean, these are sales facts, folks. You can love them or hate them. The sales went up. But the problem is you can't go to that well every single week for everything for a year and a half. Even if you have good intentions, even if it's whatever it happens to be, you get a rejection. And the rejection is not because 100% of Marvel's audience is racist. It's because you can't change everything all at once. It just, people get used to things, particularly in comics where the entire business model is getting you used to something. So you buy it the next month and the next month and the next month and the next month. And this was Marvel's real folly in like 2014, 2016, is there was no restraint. It was like, hey, what if, instead of Steve Rogers. And by the way, it's not always about race or sex. Sometimes it's like, let's replace Steve Rogers with Bucky. And, Brubaker spent a lot of time building up to that story, but still, you have the inherent problem, just like you did when, Ben Reilly replaced Peter, where you have, several decades of a character, and now it's a different character. And people are like, yeah, but I grew to love the character for 50 years. I didn't come to comics for the character. Like I was buying Spider-Man, and now that's Spider-Man, but it's a different Spider-Man. And you got the same rejection. People have this, this amnesia where they think like the only time any comic fan ever got upset was when it was black people or women or gay people. That's the only time anyone ever got upset. I'm like, bitch, I was running a shop when we did Bucky. And again, even though Ed Brubaker led up to that story, told that story, worked that story, got there, people were not happy. People were not happy with that change. That was a white dude to a white dude. All right. So, it just begs the question. It's about change. Does that mean that like nobody was racist or sexist? Of course not. I'm sure there are some people who are like, I don't like women. So I don't know, I'm doing that accent. But I don't like women. So if it's a woman, no, thank you. But again, you look at the sales of Thor and it showed that Jane Foster Thor went up. But here's why. It wasn't because, suddenly women are like, wow, finally I can see a superhero. So it's a woman. I don't know why I'm doing that accent. It's because there was a mystery involved in it. Jason Aaron, did this. Who's under the helmet? You got to keep buying to find out. I'm going to drop little hints. And as a result, it turns out mysteries and cliffhangers and stuff like that sells. And so sales went up. If you contrast that with, like the Riri Williams, which is a little bit, by the way, I should say, it's a 50 plus minute video and it's well reasoned. Guy does a good job. And per how I opened this video, he edits stuff. He puts in clips. Like he actually, knows what the fuck he's doing. So, I mean, that's a professional channel right there, folks. You can see it there. I had no input on that channel. Like he thanks me, but he did not need to. There's nothing I contributed to that video. But and he goes into kind of a lot of depth about why Riri is flawed and why people didn't like her and why it didn't work as a character. The only kind of counterpoint, I don't even know if that I would give to his video is, number one, he spent a lot of time really laying the case out for a pretty obvious statement. The writing sucked. I mean, he explains exactly why, and he goes in and he makes it less subjective and actually points out point by point by point why the writing sucked. But at the end of the day, that was the problem. Writing was shit. And you can't, you can't throw a character into a title. I mean, look at all the things going against this character. You have Bendis come in, you have him write a fairly lackluster first arc, you have him tie it into a very bad underperforming event in Civil War II. You kill Iron Man early in the run. You then put in Riri, who with just atrocious writing, all like the character, the personality, and by the way, nothing to do with her being black. That wasn't the bad part. That wasn't the bad part of the writing. The bad part of the writing was the writing. The dialogue was bad. The storyline was bad. The lecturing the teacher was bad. You telling people I want to be oppress me more so I can be a hero. Like it was nonsensical bullshit writing. But so was a lot of things Bendis was doing at that particular moment. His X-Men run was not doing well. His Guardians run made no sense anywhere. He had Kitty Pryde getting married to Star Lord. Like everything Bendis was doing there at the end of Marvel was just a train wreck. And so it's you can kind of say, wow, it's clearly racist that hated Reed. Well, they also did, people didn't like his Guardians run, people didn't like his X-Men run. Like it was, there's just bad stuff everywhere that was going on. It was not a shining moment of a guy who, less than 10 years earlier had kind of, put the Avengers back on the map and made it a mega title, which, again, hate Bendis, but he did do that as well. But this was not good Bendis. And so, that's the blunt truth of that. That would be my argument. Is that, like, look, it's actually quite simple. It was just bad. It was just bad writing. And it was so bad that, when writers came in later, it's like there's no salvaging that. It was like the damage had been done, and you had a flawed character. Pretty straightforward. But anyway, it's a good video. It lays it all out. But I think it does, and it does a good job of, I actually made one other point, which was, I don't remember, it was early in the video where he talked about, like, there were some toxic fans arguing about everything back in 2016. I mean, not as much as today, but there were some. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's actually less today. Yes, there are some big name channels making a bunch of noise and complaining about everything, but the sheer volume of bitching is actually less today than it was 10 years ago or 8 years ago. It was a greater volume then. It's numbed down. And you have a couple big examples. He did very accurately point out, I think he showed a clip of Critical Drinker saying, Marvel is replacing all the legacy heroes. And then they showed, like, She-Hulk and Wasp, and it's like, nah, there's a point to be made there. Those are two bad examples to make that point. She-Hulk, anyone who says She-Hulk was a kind of replacement character is not somebody who has read comics. She-Hulk was, again, around in the 70s, had her own arc, had her own story, had her own comic, did her own thing, was never, like, at no point did, the Hulk title get canceled and She-Hulk go in. To me, that's as dumb as the people are like, that John Byrne She-Hulk was just sexism and cheesecake. It's like, no, you didn't read the comic. You saw a cover, you never read it. Same, the Wasp is even weirder. There was never any replacement for the Wasp. Somebody pointed me at a video and it's like, you should do a commentary on this. And I tried, but it was like, it would have been a YouTube short, like 30 seconds, because the main premise was Marvel replaces the white men with women, like in the case of the Wasp. And they show Hank Pym in a comic panel going, I am the Wasp. The only problem is that's from Mighty Avengers after his ex-wife died in Secret Invasion, and he took on the name Wasp for a heartbeat, as a way to honor his dead wife. It was that was absolutely not somebody who read comics. The Wasp was a character at the beginning. There was not a replacement theory for the Wasp, and anyone who says otherwise is an idiot. That just doesn't work. Or rather, this is somebody who's pretending to read comics. But the overall point here is that, look, you can replace characters. There's been plenty of examples where it works, but the magic to it is, it's not magic at all. You have to write a good character. You have to write a compelling story. You have to make the character interesting. I didn't say likable. I said interesting. You can have an unlikable character, but if they're compelling and interesting to read, then people will kind of root against that character. But you have to have some kind of hook. And in the case of Riri, there was no hook. Like the character just was not a good character, and it simultaneously hit when Marvel was like, let's just replace everything. And then Marvel, to be fair, to complete that part of the story, Marvel then doubled down a bit on their mistake by acting completely, surprised that anyone would have a problem with it. It's like, I don't know why anybody would be upset or mad that we replaced all of the superheroes everybody's been following and been taking money for the last 50 years. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with that. This is along the same lines as people who are like, I've never seen anybody be racist on the internet. I don't know what you're talking about. Harass women? No one's ever done that. Yeah, come on. I mean, again, no matter where you are in the argument, you can find fools on the internet doing everything. So just don't, like, I get into these things from time to time, like, some guy is a complete prick to me, and it's like, I've never heard that guy be rude to anybody. It's like, you didn't You didn't see the video title that says, "Fuck all my haters." Like, come on, But anyway, um, it is a shame because I do think there were some solid stories in there, and there are some examples of some real success. I still maintain that Rick Remender building up to the Sam Wilson taking the mantle from Steve Rogers was done fairly well. Now, it was mired in a bunch of bullshit at the time as well, with stuff that was going on with the Falcon and, Kelly Thompson basically stabbing Remender in the back. But be that as it may, it there were good stories that people were building to and trying their best, and then there was stuff that people were just throwing at the wall. If you look at Ed Brubaker replacing, Steve Rogers with Bucky, or Rick Remender replacing Steve Rogers with the Falcon, if you look at Jason Aaron's run replacing Thor with Jane Foster, there was a lot of build. There was a lot of foreshadowing. There was a lot of stuff in there that was actually pretty solid in terms of, how they put the story together and how they led to it. You may not have liked it, but I think you could admit, if you're being honest, that there was, that you could see a plan. You could see how the comics basically led to these moments. And that was, that was solid storytelling. It may not have been good. Again, you may not have liked the replacement, but there was a plan. If you contrast that with, things that were a lot more half-assed. The Amadeus Cho becomes the Hulk was more half-assed. The Riri replacement was mind-numbingly half-assed. You had a bunch of these moments where they were like, now the character is all new, all different. And it was clearly like somebody who was high on shrooms late at night at the Marvel office who did not have a story at all. It was like, hey, let's try this. Fuck it. There you could see a big difference. And of course, the half-assed version, didn't succeed. Nobody wanted that. And that was ultimately the problem with Riri. Anyway, a thank you, I guess, to thanking me in your video, Anthony Garmudge. Again, I'm not doing a bit on you. Gramuglia. Let's try that. Anyway, you have a good channel, put a lot of work into it, doing well. You have more subs than me, which is appropriate because you actually are putting work into your channel. So good for you. And thank you, even though there was no point to thanking me, but you're welcome. And I think that's a really good, it's a good video and a good point. So I would check it out. If you have 50 minutes, he does lay it out really, really well. And you don't see a lot of that in comics. You don't see people actually laying out the point. So good on you. And yeah, and thanks to all of you. Thanks for listening.